Hi, good morning. When I was in the 8th grade, I was selected by teachers and administrators to leave class for the day to attend a leadership workshop. As a preteen, I was naturally pretty excited to miss class all day, no matter the reason. On the morning of, the class clown, a couple gang members, athletes, smart kids, and other kids I had never spoken to before boarded the bus alongside me. I was immediately very skeptical. How were any of these kids leaders? For that matter, how was I one? Through the course of the day, we were separated into various team-building activities where we shared stories and laughed. Toward the end of the workshop, we were asked to stand in a single line, shoulder to shoulder. If you like pizza, please take a step forward. We all took our step. Progressively, the questions got more and more difficult. If you, or if anyone you know, has ever been abused, please take a step forward. When a few brave kids took their step, the room went silent. One of the most popular kids in my class stood forward, and he later began crying. A gang member stood forward, and kids I had never even spoken to before stood forward. We comforted each other and allowed the space to teach us. Following that day, those of us who attended the workshop shared a special kind of camaraderie. We said hi to each other in the halls, helped each other in class, and formed relationships that we wouldn't have made possible otherwise. This was the first major breakthrough moment for me, one that challenged my perceptions of the people I was surrounded by every single day. And this one day ultimately helped shape my life and fueled a passion to reach others beyond the surface. So most of us will not generally admit that we are prejudiced in any way. We think, I'm a good person, and good people aren't prejudiced. But the fact remains, every single person in this room and beyond holds implicit biases, or different ideals, attitudes, and stereotypes that affect our understanding completely unconsciously in both positive and negative ways. Often, our declared beliefs don't reflect our implicit biases. Dostoevsky wrote, "There are things which a man is afraid to admit even to himself, and every decent man has a number of such things stored away in his mind." The implicit attitude test was created by social psychologist Dr. Anthony Greenwald and his colleagues to better understand our unconscious attitudes and how they disconnect from our conscious ones. So the IATs are time tests that set positive and negative associations in different categories, such as age, weight, gender, sexual orientation, and race. So let's take a look at my results for an example. So 75% of people who take the white-black race IAT result that they have more favorable feelings for white people over black people. I happen to be in the minority that has an opposite attitude. And while these tests are shocking and often upsetting, what they reveal is a critical base understanding for where we fit in broad community solutions. So I'm going to overview some of our most basic social necessities: employment, education, and criminal justice. So maybe you've seen the viral YouTube video about a man named Jose Zamora, and he applied for hundreds of jobs on Craigslist, and he was unsuccessful in receiving any callbacks. He decided to remove one letter from his name, applied to the same jobs with the same exact resume. A week later, Joe was receiving callbacks and interview opportunities like none he'd seen before. And this sort of discrimination happens more often than we realize. Sociologist David Pager's hiring audit experiments show that those white applicants who say that they have a criminal record are more likely to be hired than comparable black applicants with no criminal record. And furthermore, black applicants with a criminal record are only hired for 5% of the time. Economists also study these results, and they have found a 14% favor for white applicants over Latino applicants. So despite similar skill sets and experience, minorities have a harder time finding job opportunities. And these employers most likely don't recognize that they are perpetrators of their own implicit biases. Knowledge is power, but what happens when teachers don't recognize their own implicit biases before interacting with teachers and with their students in the classroom? Dr. Myra and David Sadker are leading experts of gender bias in education, and they've studied teacher biases for decades and hours of classroom observation. And they found that teachers spend up to 2/3 of their time speaking to their male students and are more likely to allow their male students to speak over their female students. Furthermore, teachers prompt boys to think deeper, while girls are praised for being quiet. Children of color are absolutely adversely affected by their teachers' biases. In a heartbreaking story in a series by the New York Times, one young man, Ebby Banks, tells the story of a child he mentored. And the young child asks his mentor, Is jail a good place to be? He asked because his dad was in jail, and it was somewhere he could get food and not be hungry. And it was a place where, at 5 years old, his teachers told him he would end up. I hear heartbreaking similar stories from kids I work with all the time. The school-to-prison pipeline continues to work against poor, often of-color communities where crime, poverty, and failing school systems intersect. We see what happens when we fail to care for our children's needs inside of the classroom and outside in their communities and neighborhoods. So I want you to take a second and look at this slide and think to yourself, how are all of these items related? Okay, now I'm going to tell you. So they're actually all related because they've been mistaken as weapons by police officers. And these quick judgments ultimately led to serious injury or death of the unarmed victims. The stereotype that of-color adults and children are both less innocent and more aggressive is seen in racial bias studies when black targets are shot more quickly and more often than white targets. In 2015 alone, Latinos were the second largest group killed by law enforcement, and overall, Native Americans are killed at a faster rate than any other race or ethnicity. I would love to live in a world where I could proclaim all lives matter and know it to be a reality in every sense, in our communities, in our everyday interactions, and absolutely in our school and judicial systems. But that is not the truth, and not by a long shot. So, how did we get to this place? Research suggests in everyday small interactions, we make decisions based on our implicit biases. And these small decisions add up over time and form patterns and perpetuate systemic oppression. Again, we like to believe we're good people who treat others equally, but the disconnect is very real. So, how do we become the good people we hope to be and think we are? Well, first, we must understand our individual biases and confront them head on. And this can begin with an implicit attitude test, but dismantling them takes explicit everyday work. To change systemic oppression, we can begin with holding accountability of our elected officials, of our community leaders, and absolutely of ourselves and each other. We have so much work to do and so many footsteps to follow. So, I like to consider myself a realistic optimist. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but I'm not naive in my understanding that we may never get rid of racism, sexism, ageism, or most other prejudicial isms, and especially not in this lifetime. But I do see the impact of individual empowerment every single day and how understanding ourselves helps us better understand and appreciate each other. While the research about our implicit biases is relatively new, it shouldn't take science to teach us that we should always be working on making ourselves better and helping others in the process. As an indigenous San Antonio Chicana, my love for this city is boundless and rooted in a mission so much larger than myself. I have seen some of the best of this city and the worst, from all 5 Spurs championships, cultural revival, and economic boom, to political corruption, police brutality, and gentrification. Our communities are so uniquely beautiful and diverse. We can go out and meet people from all over the world while still running into old friends from our barrios. When we begin to look past ourselves, our comfortability, and our limits, both unconscious as not, is when we can begin to learn from each other, seek each other, change ourselves, and make real positive impact. We can attend multitudes of cultural festivals, cumbia the night away, enjoy barbacoa and Big Red in a family-owned restaurant, visit world-class museums, and enjoy coffee with our city leaders. The world is watching. What better place than here, and what better time than now? Thank you.